Null day 1. I stared intently at the date on the phone screen, filled with utter disbelief. I had actually been reborn. In 7 days, the zombie virus would break out, and cities would fall one after another. In my past life, fortunately, I had stocked up on some supplies in advance, and my family managed to hold out at home for a while. My husband, Zhou Jiming, my father-in-law, Zhou Maoxue, and my mother-in-law, Wang Shufang, complacently consumed the food I had stored, yet completely forgot how they had called me wasteful. They said I only knew how to spend money and buy things randomly, and called me a money-losing burden. But those grains, oils, and rice were all carried home by me, bag by bag, with great effort climbing up the stairs. I did this for no other reason than for my lovely and sensible daughter Cece. With no support from my natal family, and suffering grievances in my husband's family, my daughter was my only hope in this world. When I heard the news of the spread of a new virus, thinking that my daughter was in the stage of growing up, in case of an outbreak in lockdown, she might not get enough nutrition, so I prepared supplies early. 02. The nightmare repeats. Who could have expected that it would be the terrifying zombie virus? In my past life, I was used to being submissive. Even though they took over the supplies, I didn't dare to resist. Even when my daughter wanted to eat a small biscuit, Wang Shufang snatched it away. I originally thought that as long as I endured and waited until the rescue arrived, it would be fine. After marrying into their family for 5 years, I knew they had always looked down on me. Zhou Jiming despised my low education level, and my failure to give birth to a son to carry on the family line. Wang Shufang and Zhou Maoxue looked down on me for only giving birth to a daughter, and treated me as an outsider. But I never imagined that they could be so vicious. One early morning, I woke up in hunger and found that my daughter was missing. They told me that my daughter had run out by herself in the middle of the night, and was dragged away by the zombies in the corridor. I frantically wanted to rush out to look for her. But Zhou Jiming slapped me to the ground and roared ferociously. If you run out now, do you want to kill our whole family? Wang Shufang also chimed in beside him, with her hands on her hips saying, if a girl is gone, she's gone. Just have a son next time. Whether it was due to hunger or being beaten, I had no strength in my body, and my mind went blank. I just felt that the world was dark and without light. I neither ate nor drank all day, and just stared blankly at my daughter's photo. I still remember the day I gave birth. When Zhou Jiming saw that the nurse carried out a daughter, he walked away without looking back and even posted on Moments, so unlucky. It's a daughter. I can't stay in this hospital for a single moment. Wang Shufang even left me alone in the hospital, and didn't take care of me for a single day during my confinement. 03. The truth comes to light. Late at night, I looked up out of the window. The boundless darkness made the moon look desolate and lonely, and the empty street echoed with terrifying roars. Somehow, I walked into Wang Shufang's room and quietly took her phone. It was an old-fashioned mobile phone with no lock screen. With a gentle swipe, I saw the unclosed WeChat chat interface, Family 3. And that 3 was particularly eye-catching. Wang Shufang. Thanks to these zombies, this little money-losing burden is finally gone. Zhou Jiming. I never wanted this girl in the first place. She wasted my whole day in the hospital, and I didn't even bother to name her. Zhou Jiming. After waiting for 10 months, all I got was a little money-losing burden. So unlucky. Zhou Maoxue. She always has a long face. So annoying. Wang Shufang. Last night, I should have thrown her out with that little money-losing burden. Zhou Jiming. Mom, don't worry. Now that the network has been restored, I received news that the country has developed a zombie vaccine, and the army will come to rescue us soon. Zhou Jiming. When this money-losing burden gives birth to a son in the future, I'll make her leave the house penniless. Looking at these cold words, I bit my lip and couldn't stop trembling all over. I had been so obedient and compliant, so why couldn't they spare my daughter? Even tigers don't eat their cubs. They were worse than beasts, these scoundrels. I would make them pay with their lives. I opened the door and saw a solitary teddy bear covered in blood lying at the door, and a small pink shoe also stained with blood. Several zombies were chewing on something in the corridor. At that moment, I could no longer control myself and roared at them. The roars attracted countless zombies, and they rushed towards the door one after another. Zhou Jiming and Zhou Maoxue, who were awakened, stared at me in horror and rushed towards me, trying to close the door. Wang Shufang slumped to the ground, and her pants were wet. But it was all too late. Unfortunately, I was the first to be submerged by the zombie horde, and didn't get to see them being torn apart with my own eyes. I tightly held that small pink shoe, and my consciousness gradually dissipated in the pain. How unwilling I was. If I could be reborn, I would definitely protect my daughter well, and never let her suffer any harm again. 04. Awakening. I looked at my daughter's lovely sleeping face beside me, and raised my hand to wipe away my tears. At this time, Wang Shufang, as usual, pushed the door open without knocking and shouted sharply. What time is it, and you still haven't gotten up to cook? You sleep like a dead pig. We paid 200,000 in betrothal gifts, and got such a lazy money. Losing burden like you. I didn't respond. I stared at her with red eyes, wishing I could tear her to pieces immediately. Seeing my appearance, Wang Shufang was so frightened that she shivered and cursed again. Why are you crying early in the morning? So unlucky. Then she slammed the door and left, muttering curses. Mommy. My daughter woke up at some point, and called me timidly. Her clear and tender voice made me sober up a bit. I hugged her tightly. Baby, mommy is here. My daughter shrank into my arms and I sighed. There were still 7 days until the zombie outbreak, and it was still a society ruled by law. I couldn't act impulsively, and had to consider the overall situation. 006. Currently, I am merely an ordinary junior staff member, with a monthly salary of 3,000 yuan. I don't have excessive savings, nor do I possess extra properties. Without sufficient funds, on the day the apocalypse arrives, I'll still have to squeeze into a house with them. When at a complete loss, I happened to notice a lottery shop ahead. Suddenly, I recalled a post I had seen on the forum after the zombie outbreak in my previous life. The poster said that he had won the lottery just over a week ago, and hadn't spent much of the money when the end of the world came. I precisely remembered the lottery numbers he had shown, and the lottery draw date was precisely tonight. So, I immediately rushed to the lottery shop, and bought a ticket with exactly the same numbers. I suppressed my excitement and returned home as usual. As usual, while they were sitting on the sofa cracking melon seeds, watching TV and laughing heartily, I silently swept the floor, mopped, did the laundry and cooked. As usual, after clearing away their leftovers, I silently washed the dishes in the kitchen. Finally, it was 8 o'clock. I took out my phone and checked the winning numbers. Exactly the same. This also indicated that what had happened in my previous life had indeed occurred. 07. The next day, after dropping my daughter off at kindergarten, I asked for leave from the company. I disguised myself, and went to the lottery center to claim 10 million yuan. After deducting taxes, 8 million yuan was left and deposited into a new card. I held this bank card excitedly, thinking about how to plan for this sum of money. In my previous life memories, the zombie virus doesn't infect animals and plants. Only those bitten by zombies will be infected. Moreover, zombies are just ordinary walking corpses, and don't have great destructive power. However, if the number of zombies is too large, ordinary obstacles are easily damaged. The official news has also reminded that as long as no excessive noise is made, they won't be attracted to gather. And before I died, the zombie vaccine had already been developed, and the army would come to the rescue. I believe in the power of the country to surely rebuild social order and restore people's normal lives. I must find a way for my daughter and me to spend these 3 months safely. Currently, the first thing I need to do is find a suitable house, which should not only enable us to survive the zombie crisis safely, but also meet our future living needs. Fortunately, I'm in an ordinary small city, and the housing price is not too expensive. Although the housing price in an ordinary community is cheap, it's too easy to fall when the zombies break out. Even if the zombies can't break through the door, the corridors and elevators will be filled with zombies. Even if there are airdrop supplies, many households will run out of supplies and have no way to go out to find replenishments. However, high-end communities, with their sturdy gates and walls, can isolate the zombies outside the community. Even if there are zombies inside, they can be easily wiped out by the security forces. I remember that in my previous life, some wealthy people in high-end communities even had the mood to post Versailles-style videos on social platforms during the apocalypse. A well-dressed noblewoman slowly went downstairs with her pet dog to pick up supplies, and even complained that she could only eat ordinary beef now, and couldn't get air-transported seafood. At that time, many people couldn't even get a single strand of noodles. I could only sigh that the rich and the poor really have different fates. Powerful and wealthy people can still live more comfortably than ordinary people even in the apocalypse, while the poor can only resign themselves to fate. 08. With 8 million yuan, I went to the sales office of the nearest high-end community. The sales office was in an independent building at the entrance of the community, and the decoration was very grand. Perhaps because of my ordinary clothes and not driving a car, the several salesgirls in the reception hall were not very enthusiastic, and didn't immediately receive me when I entered. It was not until I walked up to them that one salesgirl perfunctorily asked, "Madam, are you here to buy a house? The housing price here is very expensive." I ignored her rudeness and directly asked, "Are there any fully furnished ready-to-move-in houses? The higher the floor the better." Another salesgirl secretly rolled her eyes and impatiently flicked her hair. Currently, there is a top-floor duplex with a terrace. It has one elevator for one household, is 200 square meters, and comes with a children's room, a study, a utility room, and a master bedroom with a walk-in closet. But the down payment for this house is 1 million yuan. Hearing about the master bedroom with a walk-in closet, I was a bit tempted. Whether in my natal family or my current husband's family, I had never had a room of my own. In my natal family's house, the only second bedroom was given to my older brother, and I could only sleep in a small bed placed in the corner of the living room, with only a curtain as the only partition. In my husband's family, I was forced to endure the loud snoring every day, and had difficulty falling asleep. I had always longed to have a beautiful walk-in closet, a gorgeous dressing table, and a bright and spacious bedroom, just like those beloved girls. I also wanted to give my daughter a dreamy princess room, so that she could have a carefree childhood. To avoid a series of troubles such as loan procedures, or having to pay off the mortgage to the bank after social order is restored, I then turned to the position of the supervisor and said to him, "I'll take the top-floor duplex with a terrace. Pay in full." Also, the attitude of those salesgirls just now is a bit bad. I want to change to another salesperson to sign the contract. Seeing this, the supervisor immediately smiled apologetically. "I'm extremely sorry. It's our inadequate service. I'll arrange it for you right away." Then he turned around and loudly scolded the salesgirls whose faces had turned pale. "Hurry up and apologize to the customer." I didn't want to waste time dealing with these matters, and readily signed the contract with another salesperson. The new salesperson, with a beaming smile, led me to see my new house. 09. I held the key that belonged to me and walked towards the house with the best location. Then, at the gate downstairs, I saw that familiar face, the person who had appeared in my dreams countless times. Subconsciously, I wanted to flee, but was caught by a hand. "Is that you, Xiaowen?" That voice was still as deep and gentle as before, with a hint of tremor. I tried hard to hold back my tears and replied with a muffled slowly turning around. He was wearing a well-tailored suit, and his figure looked tall and slender. His face was as distinct as if carved, and compared to the sunny and cheerful teenager in my memory, he had more resolute edges. He was my first love, when Zichen, the regret that I could never obtain. Compared to him, I was a bit embarrassed. The shiny glass reflected my somewhat haggard face. I didn't know what to say, and could only lower my head silently. "I've been looking for you." His voice was a bit choked. In fact, I knew this, but I had always avoided his contact. I didn't have the courage to face his eyes, just as I didn't have the courage to face my parents' coercion back then. 10. At that time we were both very poor. My parents, because he couldn't produce the betrothal gifts that satisfied them at that time, drove him out of the house with sticks. They threatened to die. If I left with him, they would kill him, and then drag me to jump off together. I could only stay in the house and listen to his desperate knocking on the door until it disappeared. I could only cry and send him a breakup text message, blocking all his contact information. To buy a house for my good nothing older brother, they needed 200,000 yuan in betrothal gifts. Because I was somewhat good-looking, my current husband's family bought me with this 200,000 yuan betrothal gift. I didn't even ask my parents who the other party was. Since it wasn't him, I didn't care who I married. From then on, there was no more light in my life. I thought this was how my life would be. Later, my daughter was born, and I had another hope, until the zombie crisis broke out, and they killed my daughter again. In my previous life, I perished with them, and I never saw my first love again until I died. Perhaps because my previous life was too tragic, or perhaps because heaven pitied me and wanted to compensate me. I met him again after being reborn. 11. I'm already married and have a daughter. My voice was a bit hoarse. He was stunned, and his eyes were blood red. "I'm sorry. It was my fault back then. I was useless." He gently hugged me into his arms. "Now I have money." All the grievances burst out in an instant. I couldn't hold back anymore, and cried loudly in his arms. I know this sounds absurd, but it's all true. The heart-rending pain of being bitten by zombies, I still remember it clearly. I originally didn't want to tell anyone about my rebirth, and just wanted to live a stable life with my daughter. But I was afraid that he would also suffer that kind of pain. He was silent for a long time, with bloodshot eyes. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, "I'm sorry to me again. It's all my fault. I should have taken you away back then." He told me that because of that incident, he went to develop in a foreign place alone, wanting to earn money, and then come back to find me. But when he came back, my family was no longer there. He tried various ways to contact me, but got no response. I was crying so hard that it was difficult to breathe. Finally, I managed to stop my tears and murmured, "So many years have passed. You must be married, right? Now is not the time to be sad. You also need to make some preparations to take good care of your wife and children." He was stunned, and then said somewhat sullenly, "I'm still single." I was speechless, not daring to look into his eyes. I made an excuse that I needed to pick up my daughter and fled from there. I spent another night as usual. I forced myself not to think too much. I told myself that there were still many things to prepare, and fell asleep in a chaotic state of mind. 12. On the third day, I summoned up my courage and entered that community, praying that I wouldn't meet him today. I looked around and almost got caught, and questioned by the security guards as a suspicious person. It was not until I showed the door key that the security guards apologized. After confirming that that person was not around, I walked to the elevator entrance. I started to study how to use the elevator card. I was still looking down at the magnetic card in my hand, when a slightly cold hand brushed past my ear, and pointed at the elevator's sensor area. A cool voice came from above my head, "Swipe here." The voice, accompanied by warm breath, brushed against my hair, making the top of my head itchy, and the place where my earlobe was touched felt a bit hot. I obediently followed his words. It was not until the elevator door closed that I realized what had happened. He clearly wasn't there just now. When did he come in? I looked at my ear, as red as blood, in the elevator mirror, and my gaze moved upward, just meeting his eyes. He spoke first. You ran pretty fast yesterday. I didn't dare to answer. The elevator was very fast and reached the top floor in an instant. I immediately flashed in, and he followed in. I was speechless and said somewhat petulantly, Wenzichen, don't you know that the end of the world is coming soon? Why aren't you going to stock up on supplies? Tang Yan, he retorted. Although I was the first to call his full name, for some reason, when I heard him call my full name, I felt extremely wronged. The two of us stared at each other at the door, neither of us paying attention to the other. It was as if we had returned to the past. When we occasionally had conflicts, we were like this. But in the end, it was always him who softened first, and then patiently coaxed me until he made me laugh. After a while, I only heard him sigh and say seriously, Xiaowen, I'm a man. I don't know anything about stocking up on supplies. You have more experience than me. You have to teach me. I was even more speechless, but also a little disappointed, thinking that what he said made sense. Seeing that I was a bit relaxed, he became more pushy. Do you have a car? No. Can you drive? I'll buy a car and get a driver's license myself. There are only a few days left. Do you have some special talent to learn to drive within a few days? What does driving have to do with stocking up on supplies? If you don't drive, are you going to carry them back one by one on the bus? Then I'll call Didi. Oh, then I'll register for a Didi account. Question mark. Then I'll order takeout. Wait a minute. I'll register as a Mate 1 delivery rider after registering for Didi. All done. So Ms. Tang Yan, do you want to call Didi, order takeout, or take my car? I couldn't help but be amused by him. For free laborer. It would be a waste not to use him. 13. He drove a black sedan and stopped in front of me. I recognized the logo on the front of the car, a Mercedes-Benz. He opened the car door and walked over, casually saying, bought it with full payment. No car loan. After a pause he added, no mortgage either. I didn't want to pay him any heed, and walked straight towards the back seat to open the door. A hand held down my movement, and he smoothly opened the door of the passenger seat. Sit in the front. Save the passenger seat for your future wife. It's not appropriate for me to sit there. This time, it was his turn to be speechless. Ignoring my objection, he pulled me into the passenger seat. Sit in the front. It's easier to talk. Then, he casually fastened the seatbelt for me. When he got close to me, there was a faint scent of cologne on him, which was very pleasant. I had to admit that the interior of this car was spacious, and the soft leather sofa clung tightly to my back, providing great comfort. When the zombie crisis is over, I'll also get a car like this. 14. The two of us came to a large shopping mall, and rushed straight to the supermarket after getting out of the car. I proposed that we act separately, with him buying his things and me buying mine. But this was unilaterally vetoed. He said he would buy whatever I bought, and just take 2 portions. I couldn't argue with him, so I pushed the shopping cart in my hand towards him. He naturally took it and followed me, pushing the cart. My plan was to prepare enough supplies for half a year at one time. Although the zombie vaccine would be developed in 3 months, it was better to stock up more just in case. Even though I thought so, when I saw the dazzling array of goods, I was still overwhelmed, and didn't know where to start for a moment. He and I walked aimlessly, like an old married couple out for a stroll. I walked in front, and whenever I saw something I wanted to eat, I would take 2 portions, and throw them into the shopping cart. He pushed the increasingly full shopping cart behind me. When we reached the snack section, he picked up a bar of Dove chocolate. Should we take more of this? I remember you used to like it. Looking at the chocolate in his hand, I was immediately lost in memories. During the time we were together, because we were rather poor, we would occasionally buy 1 portion of snacks and share them. After I finished my portion, I would look eagerly at his. Every time he saw me like this, he would pretend to frown and say, this doesn't suit my taste. Baby, help me eat it. Then he would stuff his portion into my hand, and let me eat it all. Thinking of this, my nose felt sour. Seeing that I was not okay, he asked me nervously if I was feeling unwell anywhere. I shook my head and wiped away a tear. I suddenly feel like crying when I think about the last period of my previous life, when I ate nothing but plain noodles. In the early stage of the zombie virus outbreak in my previous life, we could still eat some fresh vegetables. Later, as the supplies gradually decreased, Wang Shufang, using the excuses that the elderly were in poor health and couldn't go hungry, and that the breadwinner of the family couldn't collapse, only allowed my daughter and me to eat plain noodles, while they had meat and oil in every meal. One night, I was so hungry that I opened the refrigerator, and saw that there was only 1 last bag of dumplings left. I planned to cook them, and share them the next day. But when I woke up, I only saw the empty packaging bag on the kitchen floor. Then I saw 3 figures on the balcony secretly eating something. I was extremely heartbroken but dared not show it, and could only endure silently. 15. By the time the shopping cart was full, we had been strolling around for over an hour. The supplies we had selected were far from the planned quantity. If we transported them back and forth like this, we wouldn't be able to buy enough by the day the zombie virus broke out. So we decided to abandon this inefficient method, and directly found the manager of the supermarket, and made a list. 30 bags of rice, 30 bags of flour, 30 barrels of cooking oil, 1 box each of salt, sugar, vinegar, soy sauce and other seasonings, 20 boxes of instant noodles, 20 boxes of self-heating rice, 20 boxes of self-heating hot pots, 100 bags each of biscuits, potato chips, chocolate, bread, nuts, dried meat and fruit candies, 30 cases of mineral water, 10 cases of Coke, 10 cases of Sprite 10 cases of fruit juice, 30 boxes of toothpaste, 30 boxes of soap, 20 bottles of body wash, 20 bottles of shampoo, 10 bottles of dishwashing liquid, 10 bottles of laundry detergent, 20 bottles of disinfectant, 50 caddies of beef, 50 caddies of pork, 30 caddies of fish and shrimp, 30 chickens and ducks, 20 bags each of frozen dumplings, frozen buns and scallion pancakes. Ordering so many things at once inevitably aroused suspicion. The supermarket manager required us to pay the full amount of the order first. We made some excuses, explaining that the company was going to hold an event for employees and distribute benefits, and asked him to order 2 large freezers in the electrical appliance area and deliver them to our door together, and said that we would give him a tip afterwards. Seeing that we settled all the money on the spot, the supermarket manager didn't say anything more and told us that the goods could be delivered to our door in the afternoon. I gave Wenzichen a key to the house, told him that I had a very important thing to solve, and asked him to move my share of the supplies to the storage room of the house. I would transfer half of the money to him later. He didn't ask too many questions and took the key. Xiaowen, whatever you are going to do, I will support you. 16. I went to a travel agency and bought 3 travel vouchers for City A. I posted a moments that was only visible to those 3 people. So lucky. I won 3 travel vouchers in a lottery. I can take the baby to City A to play tomorrow. During dinner, the 3 of them winked at each other at the dining table, calculating in their hearts. Wang Shufang winked at me desperately, but I pretended not to see and put food into my daughter's bowl. Seeing that I didn't respond, Wang Shufang glanced at Zhou Jiming angrily. Zhou Jiming coughed. Xiaowen, give me your travel vouchers. I'll take our dad and mom out to play. I knew that with their selfish and cheeky nature, they would definitely be tempted by these 3 travel vouchers. Of course, I wasn't so kind as to really let them go out to play. I knew that 10 days later was Wang Shufang's birthday. In my previous life, Zhou Jiming, that mama's boy, originally planned to take annual leave and go on a family trip. Of course, he only intended to take his parents and not me and my daughter, the outsiders. I deliberately pretended to be in a dilemma. But Cece has never been far away from home. This time, I won the lottery by chance and I want to take her out to play. Zhou Jiming raised his voice and his expression became impatient. What but? Our mom is about to turn 50. What's wrong with you using a travel voucher to honor her? It was really laughable. How could honoring his mom mean grabbing my travel vouchers? After marrying in for several years, you haven't added a son. You just think about enjoying life all day long. Zhou Maoshua also fanned the flames. Wang Shufang threw her chopsticks down unhappily, and the wrinkles on her face almost squeezed her facial features together. You as a daughter-in-law, don't honor your in-laws. Forget it. My son works so hard to support the family. He only has a few days off. You don't know how to be considerate. I watched the 3 of them singing in unison, and was too lazy to continue acting with them. I put the travel vouchers on the table. Wang Shufang took the travel vouchers triumphantly. Still, my own son is filial. An outsider can never be counted on. Mom, let Xiaowen pack our luggage. We'll set off tomorrow. Son will definitely make your 50th birthday a grand one. I sneered in my heart. 50th birthday? I'll make sure you live to be only 49. After I packed their going on a trip luggage for them, I secretly put a little gift in the suitcase. 17. On the 4th day, early in the morning, they dragged their suitcases and went out. After I took my daughter to kindergarten, I returned to the house, packed up some personal items and some documents, and immediately rushed to the new house. From today on, I can live in the new house with my daughter without any worries. I'm not worried at all that those 3 scoundrels will contact me. They even hide from me when they eat something good, let alone share any travel joys with me. Without them getting in the way, it's more convenient for me to prepare the new house. The decoration of the new house is in a light luxury style, and the furniture and electrical appliances are very complete. There is a flower bed built on the terrace, and I plan to grow vegetables there. After all, fresh vegetables cannot be stored for a long time. I went to the storage room to check the supplies from yesterday, and was surprised to find that Wenzichen hadn't taken his half. Just as I was wondering, the door of the entrance hall was opened, and Wenzichen came in pulling a suitcase. I folded my arms and gave him a look asking what he was doing. He said without batting an eyelid, I'm scared living alone. He also said that after being single for many years, his cooking skills had improved, and he had actively practiced sunda in his spare time. He could not only be presentable in public, but also cook well. With a driver and laborer, and now an additional free cook and bodyguard, it would be a waste not to use them. Given the tight schedule, after checking the new house, Wenzichen and I went out. First, we found a construction team, and gave them a generous payment to replace the door of the new house with a bank vault-level anti-theft door. The kind that couldn't be blown up by a bomb within today. The other windows were also replaced with bullet-proof materials and double reinforced. A water circulation device and a solar-powered system were installed on the terrace to prevent water and power outages, and protective nets were installed around. We also gave the contractor an extra sum of money to replace the security doors of the fire escape on my floor, and the floor below with anti-theft doors. Since Wenzichen's house was right below mine, there was no need to worry about other property owners coming to our door. Before the construction team left, I ordered several extremely sturdy locks from them, and asked them to deliver them as soon as possible. After everything was ready, when Zichin and I went out for the second purchase. This time, the purchase was mainly for some clothes and bedding. I walked in front, and whenever I saw something suitable, I would directly ask the clerk to pack it without looking at the price. When Zichin followed behind, carrying full shopping bags and swiping his card to pay, people who didn't know might think I was a mistress being kept by some rich boss. In addition, I bought a lot of children's books and toys. Although the zombie crisis was coming, the education of the child couldn't be neglected. After that, we also went to the pharmacy and swept up a batch of medicines of all kinds. Anti-inflammatory drugs, cold medicines, stomach medicines, vitamins. We didn't stop until the trunk, back seat, and passenger seat of that Mercedes Benz were all filled with things. Since there was no room for people, when Zichin could only drive back first, and I went to the kindergarten to pick up my daughter alone. When I arrived at the kindergarten, Cece had already packed her things, and was sitting quietly on the chair waiting for me. Having been neglected by her biological father and grandparents since childhood, she was more well-behaved and sensible than children of the same age. When Cece saw me coming, she happily ran towards me. "Mommy, my dear, how was your performance in kindergarten today?" Cece was rewarded with a little red flower by the teacher. "Look, Mommy, Cece is so great. Mommy has prepared a gift for Cece today." "Thank you, Mommy. Whatever gift Mommy prepares, Cece will like it." Cece looked at me with big expectant eyes. Thinking of the scene in my previous life, when such a lovely daughter was thrown out to feed the zombies, my heart ached faintly. These three scoundrels. I won't let them enjoy themselves for long. After all, in my previous life, City A was the first city to fall in the zombie crisis, and also the city with the most serious situation. 18. Returning to the new home, as soon as I entered the door, I was greeted by the aroma of food. When Zichin, wearing an apron, was coming out of the kitchen with a plate of braised pork, I was a bit dumbfounded, having forgotten to explain this to my daughter. My daughter looked at when Zichin curiously, and then turned to me. "Cece, this is our new home. And this is, Hello Cece. I'm Uncle Wen, the nanny your mom hired. I'll be living with you from now on. Please take care of me." Before I could come up with the right words, when Zichin answered boldly, not forgetting to blink at me a few times. "Humph. A man's words are often deceiving. Hello Uncle Wen." The braised pork Uncle Wen made smells so delicious. Cece, the little foodie, was attracted by the aroma and broke free from my hand to join the enemy. I glared at when Zichin angrily. Seeing that his food baiting plan had worked, he gave me an innocent smile again. Cece is such a polite and good-natured child. Uncle even baked some small cookies specially for Cece. "Your mom doesn't seem very hungry. Cece, come and try them with me first." "Really? Cece loves small cookies the most. Thank you, Uncle Wen." The two of them got along on their own, completely ignoring me, the hostess of this new house. I looked at their backs resentfully, but my stomach growled ungratefully. In the end, I couldn't resist and joined the meal, having team. Watching when Zichin and Cece interacting happily at the dinner table, I suddenly felt a bit relieved. Cece hadn't been this lively for a long time. After dinner, having been busy all day, we were all a bit tired. When Zichin said goodnight, and went to the guest room to rest, I took Cece to wander around the new house. When Cece saw the princess room filled with toys, she kissed me several times on the face, and happily lay on the huge plush teddy bear to play. The master bedroom had also been tidied up in perfect order by when Zichin. I suppressed the warmth welling up in my heart. I repeatedly edited the words "good night" on WeChat, deleting and re-editing, and finally didn't send them. I lay down and fell into a deep sleep. 19. On the 5th day, when Zichin and I purchased some more vegetables and fruits that were easy to store, as well as seeds, and started to study how to grow vegetables in the flower bed. We also added an enclosed glass cage on the terrace, and raised some ruffed-necked partridges. Ruffed-necked partridges make little noise, and are not likely to attract the attention of zombies. Even if ordinary eggs run out, we can still have fresh ruffed-necked partridge eggs. On the 6th day, when Zichin proposed that we convert the remaining money into gold. After all, no one knows whether money will become worthless in the future, but gold has always been a hard currency in civilized times. To avoid suspicion, after exchanging some at the bank, we went to a jewelry store and bought some gold jewelry. When Zichin went to the toilet halfway, when he came back, there seemed to be something bulging in his upper pocket. In the evening, I called my parents and my older brother, reminding them to prepare some supplies, and not to go out the day after tomorrow. I didn't say much. After all, they were my blood relatives, and I was just fulfilling my due obligation. As for whether they would listen to me, I didn't want to care. When Zichin's parents passed away early, and he had no other relatives, so he didn't have such concerns. On the 7th day, I asked for leave from the kindergarten teacher, and together with when Zichin, checked again whether the defense facilities were complete. When it was almost 12 o'clock at night, I took out the locks I had previously ordered from the construction team, and was about to go lock the several gates of the community. I wasn't doing this out of kindness. If there were too many zombies in this community, even if we were on the top floor, we wouldn't be able to live in peace. Keeping the zombies out of the community as much as possible could avoid a lot of trouble and accidents. When Zichin also wanted to go with me to lock the gates, I put my hands on my hips and said to him seriously, "When Zichin, have you ever thought that if what I said is all false, this would be a crime of obstructing public order, and you could be detained?" When Zichin propped up his chin and thought for a while, then replied solemnly, "If nothing happens tomorrow, I'll take the blame for you. But if I can't find a job and can't afford to eat after getting out of prison, you have to take me in, Xiaowen. I turned my head to hold back my laughter, and muttered in a voice he couldn't hear. If you go to prison and have a criminal record, how will your children take the civil service exam in the future? After that, we bribed the security guards of the community. Although the security captain looked reluctant, under the temptation of so much money, he acquiesced to our actions and said that they would find someone to remove the locks at 9 o'clock tomorrow. After locking the main gates, we returned and locked the unit door by the way. When we got home, we locked all the outside doors tightly. After doing all this, I finally heaved a sigh of relief. Back in the room, I opened my phone and coldly looked at the moments posts by Zhou Jiming and Wang Shufang, which were pictures of delicious food in City A. Everything was about to end. In this life, I will live well. 20. At 8 o'clock in the morning on the 8th day, I was on the terrace, looking at the movement at the gate through a telescope. More and more property owners were locked by the gate, and couldn't get out, and they started to curse the security guards. A middle-aged bald man grabbed the security captain's collar and cursed. I have an order worth tens of millions. Who can afford to compensate me if I miss the plane? Let me out now or I'll sue you. The security captain had no choice but to call me. Miss Tang, we can't hold off until 9 o'clock. Please come down and unlock the gates quickly. Before he finished speaking, a sudden scream came from the other end of the phone. Ah, help! They're eating people. A woman covered in blood was lying on the community gate, her hands tightly grasping the railing, begging the people inside to save her. Through the telescope, I saw that this woman was the snobbish salesgirl from before. Before she could finish speaking, a zombie pounced on her and bit off her neck in one bite. The bald man who had been losing his temper just now was splashed with blood and staggered and fell to the ground. The zombie bared its teeth at the people inside through the railing. Almost everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. I quickly replied to the security captain, "Hurry up and evacuate the crowd. Tell them to go home." Although the security captain was also very frightened, after all, he had served in the military and immediately took action. Fortunately, the gates had been locked, and the property owners obediently went home. Not many people in this community were infected. 21. I hung up the phone and waited quietly for a while. Sure enough, Wang Shufang called a WeChat video. They were in the hotel room at the moment. In the video, Wang Shufang looked extremely langbei, with a bruise on her face. The clothes of Zhou Jiming and Zhou Maoxue were also a bit tattered. When Wang Shufang saw that I answered the video, she started to curse. "You unlucky wretch. If it weren't for your travel vouchers, we wouldn't have come here. This lousy place is full of crazy people who bite. Wang Shufang, how can you blame me for this? But I also want to thank you. I was originally going to take Cici to City A. Thanks to you three for taking the hit for us." When I said this, Wang Shufang was so angry that she started to curse me loudly. I felt that the effect wasn't enough, so I added fuel to the fire. "Zhou Jiming, just go on your way with your parents in peace. I'll take over your inheritance properly, and the daughter will change her surname to Tang Cici. Your Zhou family will be completely extinct from now on." When Zhou Jiming heard this, he lost his mind, snatched the phone and shouted at me, "Don't think you too money. Losing burdens can survive. These monsters will bite you to death sooner or later. Zhou Jiming, you don't have to worry about the safety of Cici and me. I won the lottery, and am now lying in a mansion, very comfortable." After hearing this, they realized that the background behind me wasn't that small shabby house, and they cursed even more fiercely. As their voices grew louder, there was a chaotic patting sound outside the hotel room door. Zhou Maoxue quickly rushed over and slapped Wang Shufang and Zhou Jiming, covering their mouths. "You two stupid pigs. The monsters will hear you." I watched this good show and couldn't help laughing. "Wang Shufang, didn't you say you were going to have your 50th birthday? Your daughter-in-law have a nice gift for you." Then I pressed the button of a controller. A harsh alarm sounded from their suitcase. Attracted by this sound, the roars outside the door grew louder. The three of them were dumbfounded. Zhou Jiming quickly rummaged through the suitcase to find the alarm, but unfortunately, I had packed the luggage, and he couldn't find it after searching for a long time. At this time, Wang Shufang still didn't change her ways and cursed at me. "Tang Yan, you bitch. Turn that thing off." I thought they were too noisy and had had enough fun, so I turned off the video chat with Wang Shufang and blocked her. Then I received a flood of messages from Zhou Jiming and Zhou Maoxue, filled with all kinds of abusive words. I sneered and blocked them as well. They were on the verge of death, and still wanted to vent their anger on me. Opening the trending searches, the first news was that the international hotel in City A had fallen. I watched the live broadcast from a drone, and the screen happened to show a hotel room being broken through by zombies. Those three familiar and hated figures were surrounded and bitten by zombies, and fell out of the window. I felt a great sense of relief in my heart. Finally, it was all over. The people who had killed my daughter in my previous life finally got their due retribution. 22. I stretched leisurely, scattered a handful of feed for the ruffed-necked partridges, and took care of the newly sprouted vegetable seedlings. When Zichen carried the breakfast to the terrace, seeing my cheerful demeanor, he could also guess the reason. He didn't ask any more questions, and silently had breakfast with me at the small table. The outside world had already descended into chaos, with screams, cries, and the wailing of police sirens filling the streets. We are not saints, we are just ordinary people. We can't save everyone. All we can do is protect our own small family. After all, Locking the gates of the community wouldn't be understood by others before the zombies appeared, let alone telling everyone that the end of the world was coming beforehand. If we publicized it, we might even be arrested for the crime of spreading rumors. Saving this community is all that we can do. Moreover, I firmly believe that the country will never abandon its people under any circumstances. In my previous life, despite the scarcity of supplies, so many families were able to hold on until the zombie virus vaccine was developed, precisely because the National Army had been airdropping supplies to help ordinary people. What we need to do now is to stay safely in this house until the day of rescue arrives. After some self-consolation, I looked at Wenzichen without saying a word. As if he could see through my unease, he returned a determined smile to me. Xiaowen, don't be afraid. No matter what happens, I'll always be by your side. 23. The subsequent life was rather uneventful. We had an abundance of supplies and didn't need to go out at all. The dishes cooked by Wenzichen tasted extremely delicious, and he would occasionally make some baked desserts for us. After getting along for a period of time, Cece's personality became more cheerful. Sometimes, instead of coming to play with me, she would pester Wenzichen to tell her stories. One evening, we were having a hot pot in the living room, while Wenzichen was busy preparing ingredients in the kitchen. Cece tugged at my hand and acted coquettishly. Mommy, I think Uncle Wen is really nice. Can we live with him all the time? This little girl was indeed precocious. Seeing that Wenzichen had entered the kitchen, I said to her seriously, Cece, don't be naughty. Uncle Wen will have his own life in the future. When the monsters outside are gone, Uncle Wen will go back to his own home. You can't always bother him, understand? Mommy is so stingy. I won't talk to you anymore. Cece pouted and turned her back to me angrily. Just as I finished speaking, I saw Wenzichen standing at the kitchen door, his eyes burning with intensity. I lowered my eyes and looked at the boiling soup in the pot. The air was so quiet that only the gurgling sound of the bubbles could be heard. No one spoke for a minute. Finally, Wenzichen broke the silence, his voice a bit low. Cece, you can't be angry with your mommy. You should be a good girl. Then he turned around and went back to the kitchen. I raised my head and only caught a glimpse of the shadowy look that flashed across his face as he turned. Cece responded with a pitiful voice and continued to eat the sliced mutton in her bowl. In fact, I wasn't oblivious to Wenzichen's feelings, but I could only play dumb. Although I had thought of him countless nights, tossing and turning and unable to fall asleep. But I was already a married woman, and he had a bright future ahead of him. We were already a thing of the past, a regret. There shouldn't be any more intersections between us. I hoped to see him and wished him well. However, I didn't want to hold him back. 24. The days passed by one after another. The two of us mochita soya mayotichi na janshu, and life remained as uneventful as before. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed, and the weather gradually turned cooler. Since there was no weather forecast now, I didn't notice the subtle changes in temperature. One noon, I was sunbathing on the terrace and accidentally fell asleep. Suddenly, I was awakened by a gust of cold wind. Sneezing, I quickly went back into the house. But I still unfortunately caught a cold. The illness came on strongly, and the cold turned into a severe one. I had a high fever and fainted on the ground. I fell into a coma and had a very long dream. In the dream, Wenzichen was fully armed and shuttled through the streets filled with zombies together with several people in the same gear. He held a list in his hand and seemed to be searching for something. They cleared away many zombies along the way and checked each floor of the community one by one, rescuing many trapped families, until they came to a building that I was very familiar with. Wenzichen looked at the list in his hand and was somewhat excited. When he cleared the zombies on the lower floors and reached the 5th floor, he saw that the door of the household on the list was wide open and instantly became distraught. A female zombie with almost her abdomen bitten open turned around slowly when she heard the movement outside the door. Although her face was already disfigured, I could still recognize that person. That zombie was myself. Wenzichen took off his helmet tremblingly, and his eyes gradually filled with despair. He softly called out, Xiaowen. The me, who had turned into a zombie, reacted and staggered towards him. I screamed and shouted for Wenzichen to get out of the way, but he seemed not to see or hear me. Instead of dodging, Wenzichen opened his arms and embraced that zombie, allowing her to bite his neck. When I reached this part of the dream, I couldn't hold back my sobs any longer. In a state between sleep and wakefulness, I seemed to hear a familiar voice calling me. I struggled to wake up and found myself lying in bed with an ice towel on my head. Wenzichen looked a bit tired, and was resting with his head propped up by the bedside, still muttering my name. As if he sensed my movement, he raised his head and asked with concern, Do you feel any better? You had a high fever, and were in a coma for 2 days. Your temperature just dropped. Before he could finish, I threw myself into his arms. At this moment, I didn't want to care about anything anymore. I just held him tightly. Chin, don't leave me. He reciprocated my hug and gently left a kiss on my forehead. It's okay. This time, I'll never be separated from you again. 25. 3 months later, a large number of helicopters and armored vehicles arrived in our city in a mighty procession. The huge loudspeakers conveyed the exciting news to all citizens. Our country had successfully developed a vaccine against the zombie virus, and was currently mass-producing it. Those terrifying walking corpses fell one after another under the powerful firepower. Heavily armed soldiers and medical staff were searching house by house for survivors. The property owners of the community shouted in unison by the windows. Long live the motherland! Long live the motherland! When Zichin and I stood on the terrace and watched all this, and we couldn't help but join the cheering crowd. After that night, I also opened my heart, accepted him, and accepted myself. Some things in the past had become regrets, and I couldn't change them. But God had given me a chance to be reborn, and I couldn't be too greedy. The future is long, and I should cherish the person in front of me. I took the initiative to hold Wenzichen's hand. Today is really a wonderful day. It's the 100th day since our reunion, and the zombie crisis has been lifted. Chun, how about regarding today as our anniversary from now on? Wenzichen looked at me tenderly. It's indeed a day worth commemorating. After saying that, he suddenly knelt down on one knee and took out a small square box from his upper pocket. He opened the box, and a diamond ring sparkled in the sunlight. Miss Tang Yan, would you like to spend the rest of your life with me? I do. The end.